Imagine a secret code used by global diplomats and corporate strategists to share their most controversial, game-changing ideas without ever facing public backlash or being canceled. What is this century-old secret, and how does it secretly hold the highest levels of global problem-solving together?
Yeah,
Welcome to our deep dive. I found the material today just particularly fascinating
it really is.
because it directly contradicts how we're taught to handle public relations, right?
Yeah.
And transparency in the modern era. So, we're looking at a framework called the Chatham House Rule, drawing from this great analysis titled Beyond the Record: The Power and Purpose of the Chatham House Rule.
Right.
And our mission for this deep dive is to explore the actual mechanics of honesty in high stakes environments. We really want to understand how anonymity paradoxically breeds the most unvarnished truth.
Hmm.
Because if you think about the world you're navigating right now, it's an era of instant social media receipts.
Oh, absolutely. The receipts are everywhere.
Exactly. The ever present risk of being misunderstood or having a quote taken entirely out of context, it just hovers over almost every public statement anyone makes.
It does.
The ability to just speak your mind freely, to test out a messy, half-formed idea has become an incredibly rare
Yeah.
luxury.
A massive luxury.
So today we're giving you an exclusive look at how the world's most sensitive rooms actually operate when the doors are closed, the cameras are off, and the PR teams are firmly locked out.
What really stands out here, I think, is the sheer functional necessity of this practice. You pointed out that we live in a world where every word is documented, analyzed, and often
Oh,
weaponized.
definitely weaponized.
Right. Yet, if you look at the high-stakes worlds of international diplomacy
Right.
or massive corporate strategy or critical policy making, raw honesty isn't just like a nice-to-have cultural trait. It is an operational necessity. If global leaders or industry executives can't be honest about a failing policy or a flawed algorithm or a looming economic crisis because they're terrified of tomorrow's headline, the whole system of problem solving just breaks down.
It completely stalls.
Exactly. So to bridge this gap, leaders have relied for nearly a century on the Chatham House Rule. At its core, the rule is a strict pact of professional discretion.
Hmm.
It serves as the ultimate incubator for raw truth. The mechanism itself is brilliantly simple, actually.
Right. It's not complicated.
Not at all.
Mhm.
You are explicitly allowed to share the what of a conversation, meaning the information, the data, the warnings, the ideas.
Yeah.
But the who, the identity and the affiliation of the speaker, must remain locked behind closed doors indefinitely.
It's basically the ultimate Vegas rule for diplomats and
That
strategists.
gets rule, yeah.
What happens in the room stays in the room, except you're actually allowed to take the chicks home with you. Like, you can take the brilliant idea you just heard, or the terrifying warning about a supply chain collapse, and you can act on it immediately. You just absolutely cannot say who gave you that warning.
That is an excellent way to frame it. It creates a psychological environment where people can float controversial ideas
Mm.
or, importantly, just admit uncertainty.
Yes, the uncertainty part is huge.
Think about a policymaker or a central bank official. Under normal circumstances, they cannot stand at a podium and say, I actually have no idea if this interest rate hike is going to work, and I'm losing sleep over the possibility that it might trigger a recession.
Oh man, the markets would instantly tank.
Exactly. You simply cannot say that on television without causing market panic.
Yeah.
But under the Chatham House Rule, they can challenge their own status quo, voice their deepest anxieties, and ask for help without the fear of personal reprisal or dealing with embarrassing headlines the next morning.
So to really grasp why this middle ground is so vital, we need to place it on the broader spectrum of transparency, because we all know the traditional spectrum of how information is shared. On one end, you have on the record.
Mm-hmm.
This is the stuff you see on your feed all day long. It's the official press conference, the corporate press release, the carefully worded tweet.
Very carefully worded.
Yes. So can you use the info? Yes. Can you name the source? Yes.
But because it's public, it's heavily vetted.
Exactly. Vetted by lawyers and PR teams. It's safe, and frankly, it rarely contains the messy reality of a situation.
No, it's the highly polished public face of an organization. It serves a purpose for official communication, but it is practically useless for complex problem solving.
Right. And then, jumping to the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you have off the record.
Right.
Can you use the info? No. Can you name the source? Definitely no.
It's pure lockdown.
Pure lockdown secrecy.
Right.
It's the stuff that never leaves the room, which means it is essentially a journalistic dead end.
Yeah.
It doesn't help anyone outside of that specific localized conversation because the flow of broader knowledge is just totally halted.
Mm.
But right there in the center, striking this incredibly pragmatic balance between total publicity and total secrecy, is the Chatham House Rule.
Right in the sweet spot.
Yeah, the data is liberated, but the author is protected.
Now, for the Doubting Thomas kind of viewers out there, you might be thinking, isn't this just a convenient excuse for elites to avoid accountability?
Oh, I'm sure people are thinking that.
Hold on to that skepticism.
Okay.
Chew on that in your mind as we continue, because we are going to explore how stripping away public accountability actually forces a much higher level of raw, unvarnished truth-telling.
It sounds backward, but it's true.
It really is. If we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to understand human behavior in high-stakes environments. When people are publicly accountable, when their name and their organization's logo are attached to every single syllable, their primary goal inevitably shifts from solving the problem to protecting their reputation.
That dynamic is so recognizable. I mean, if I know my name is going to be permanently attached to a proposal, I'm naturally going to suggest the safest, most defensible idea.
Exactly, you play it safe.
I'm not going to stick my neck out and take a massive analytical risk.
No.
I want to spend some time on the origin story here because understanding the specific moment in history when this was created explains so much about why it works.
Yeah. Context is everything here.
This rule wasn't just invented on a whim. It was born in 1927 at the Royal Institute of International Affairs, which was based in Chatham House in London.
Right.
And the historical context here is absolutely critical. We're talking about the intensely fragile geopolitical landscape following the devastation of World War I.
Yes, the 1920s were a period of immense global anxiety.
Huge anxiety.
The world had just witnessed the catastrophic cost of failing diplomacy. You had the League of Nations struggling to maintain order, massive economic instability, and deeply entrenched hyper-nationalism.
Yeah.
The traditional diplomatic playbook had utterly failed to prevent the Great War. So the founders of the Royal Institute realized a terrifying flaw in international relations. If every diplomat only spoke in official, guarded, on-the-record statements, they could never admit vulnerability. They could never compromise without looking weak to their domestic populations.
Because what does official posturing look like in that era? It looks like an ambassador reading a prepared, rigid statement.
Right.
It means never admitting that your country's economy is secretly struggling or that your military is overextended.
Exactly.
Because if you admit yet on the record your rivals pounce or your citizens riot, you're completely trapped by your own national PR.
Precisely. They needed a pressure valve. They needed a physical and philosophical space where leaders could sit across from each other and say, look, my government's official stance is X, but the reality on the ground is Y. And if we don't figure this out, we are all heading toward another war.
Wow.
They engineered the Chatham House Rule specifically to create an environment where truth-telling was structurally prioritized over point scoring.
I love that distinction.
Point scoring is what happens at a public debate or a UN General Assembly. Truth-telling requires a space where the ego and the nationalistic armor can be left at the door.
Left entirely outside.
Yeah. And over the last century, this framework has evolved from that single room in London into a global standard for critical discourse.
So when you look at who actually benefits from this ecosystem today, it really breaks down into three distinct groups. Let's dig into each one, starting with the first beneficiary, the speaker.
Okay.
For the person actually standing up and delivering a controversial thought, this rule acts as an impenetrable shield. Think about how this applies beyond just geopolitics. Imagine a massive tech company deciding whether to pivot their entire AI strategy.
Oh, relevant example.
Right. Under Chatham House rules, a lead engineer can stand up in an industry consortium and say, our current multi-billion-dollar language model is a developmental dead end. We are hitting a wall.
Yeah.
They can say that without their own PR team having a meltdown and without the company's stock price instantly plummeting.
That is the exact utility of the shield. It allows the speaker to sever the idea from their corporate or governmental identity.
Right.
They can test a radical hypothesis or formally admit a failure without it being permanently etched into their public record.
But let me push back on that for a second. Is it really an impenetrable shield?
How so?
Well, in the age of digital surveillance, constant leaks, and process of elimination, if you have a highly specialized room discussing a niche topic and a specific controversial policy leaks out, isn't it incredibly easy to guess who said it?
Ah,
If the tech executive says the AI is failing and everyone knows they're the only tech executive in the room, the anonymity feels a bit fragile, doesn't it?
that is a very astute challenge, and it highlights the operational limits of the rule. You are right. In a room of 3 people, the rule is mathematically useless.
Right, it's obvious.
Process of elimination destroys the anonymity. The Chatham House Rule scales best and provides the thickest shield in medium to large gatherings. Think conferences, high-level summits, or expansive working groups where multiple experts from similar fields are present.
Okay, that makes sense.
The shield is impenetrable only as long as the crowd is large enough to provide cover, and more importantly, as long as the collective buy-in of the participants holds firm. Which brings us perfectly to the second beneficiary.
Right, the participant, the person sitting in the audience absorbing all of this.
Yes.
What's their real takeaway? It seems like they walk away equipped with a wealth of completely unfiltered data. You're gaining insights, nuanced perspectives, and admissions of doubt that you would never, ever find in a sanitized press release or a corporate marketing brochure.
The participant leaves the room genuinely smarter. They have been exposed to the raw topography of an issue rather than the heavily manicured map the public gets to see.
The real terrain.
Exactly. If you're that participant, you can return to your own organization and adjust your strategies based on reality. You can say to your team, I know what the official reports are claiming about the global supply chain, but the actual reality on the ground is much more precarious.
Yeah.
You leverage the data to make superior decisions. You just diligently protect the source of that data.
Which flows right into the third beneficiary, the organization itself.
Right.
The broader fields of diplomacy, research, and high-level policy all benefit because this rule actively breaks down silos. There's concept here regarding candid friction that I think is the secret sauce of the whole system.
Candid friction.
Yes, unpack that. To me, it implies that people are actually allowed to disagree, to fiercely debate, and to hash things out without it instantly escalating into a personal attack or a public scandal.
That is a crucial dynamic.
Yeah.
Friction is fundamentally necessary for refining ideas, much like friction is required to polish a rough stone.
Great analogy.
Thanks. However, in public forums, friction is almost always interpreted as fighting,
Oh,
and modern organizations are terrified of the optics of fighting. When leaders are performing for a public audience, when they're on the record, they tend to do one of two things.
what are they?
They either artificially avoid friction to present a unified, harmonious front, or they manufacture fake theatrical friction for political point scoring.
Which we see all the time on cable news.
Exactly. Candid friction means they are genuinely wrestling with the material.
And they're usually wrestling with what experts call wicked problems.
Exactly. These rooms are designed to tackle wicked problems. A wicked problem is a sociological term for an issue that is highly complex, has no single right answer, and involves massive competing trade-offs.
Like what?
Climate change is a wicked problem.
Yeah.
Global economic regulation is a wicked problem. You cannot solve a wicked problem without immense vulnerability. You have to be able to say, if we implement this environmental policy, this specific sector of the economy is going to be devastated.
Candid friction allows experts to push back on bad ideas, fiercely debate those agonizing trade-offs, and argue passionately purely for the sake of finding the most viable solution because there is no external audience to perform for.
So we see how this creates a perfect incubator for raw truth. But that raises a massive glaring question.
Okay.
If there are no lawyers in the room, what keeps someone from walking out and tweeting everything they just heard?
Yes.
We're just about to get into how this century-old rule is actually enforced, and trust me, it's not what you expect. Please continue watching till the end to find out what happens to the people who break this sacred pact.
It's fascinating.
Let's get into the actual enforcement, because this might be the most surprising part of the entire framework.
Right.
You have this century-old rule holding together international diplomacy and multi-billion-dollar corporate strategies.
Right.
Naturally, you would assume there are intense legal contracts, ironclad non-disclosure agreements, and massive financial penalties involved.
It is a massive contradiction that usually shocks people.
There are no police allowed in this framework.
None.
None. The Chatham House Rule is strictly an ethical bond, not a legal chain. It is not a legally binding contract that you sign at the door. There are no Chatham House police waiting in the wings to arrest you, and there is no tribunal to fine you for a leak.
That's wild.
Fundamentally, it remains what it was in 1927, a gentleman's agreement. It's a shared communal ethical code.
But if there are no lawyers and no financial penalties involved, what's the actual deterrent? What happens if someone decides they care more about going viral or getting a quick headline than they do about the ethical bond?
Right.
If someone goes straight to a financial reporter and says, hey, the CEO of that massive tech company just admitted their AI is a dead end, what is the true cost to the leaker?
While violating the rule rarely results in a lawsuit, the real penalty is far more devastating in these elite professional circles.
Which is?
A total irrecoverable loss of reputation. Trust is the absolute baseline currency of high-level problem solving. Elite circles operate heavily on whisper networks. If you demonstrate that you cannot be trusted to keep a source anonymous, if you shatter that ethical bond for a momentary advantage or a burst of gossip, the consequence is swift, silent, and permanent.
You're just done.
You simply stop receiving invitations. You are entirely exiled from the inner circle of collective intelligence.
Professional exile. That is honestly so much more effective than a monetary fine.
It really is.
Because if you pay a fine, you write a check and you move on with your career. But if you lose your reputation in those high-stakes environments, your ability to do your job is just gone.
Not completely.
You're completely shut out of the vital information flows forever. Nobody will ever float a messy idea around you again.
No, they won't.
It all ties back to the core philosophy of this entire system, prioritizing the collective intelligence of the room over the individual ego. By completely decoupling a person's identity from their ideas, we force everyone in that room to judge those ideas entirely on their own merit.
It creates the ultimate meritocracy of thought.
Yeah.
When you don't know, or at least when you are forced to disregard whether the idea came from a seasoned world-famous diplomat or a junior data analyst you usually ignore, you have to actually engage with the substance of the idea itself.
You can't just rely on their credentials.
Exactly. It meticulously strips away our inherent biases about the speaker. We stop judging the packaging and are left only with the raw material of the thought.
And that is how you actually make progress on those wicked problems. You stop worrying about who gets the credit for a breakthrough or who gets the blame for a failure, and you just rigorously examine the facts. It's an incredibly refreshing concept, especially when you contrast it with how performative so much of our daily communication has become.
So to close the loop on our initial question,
Right?
this secret code holds global problem solving together because it is our best tool for solving wicked problems. In a world that often feels like a giant, highly scrutinized fishbowl, providing a little bit of anonymity is the only way to get the raw honesty needed to find the truth.
Thanks, everyone, for their time, and we request you to revisit King's Academy for more knowledge. Please let us know your opinion in the comments section, and as always, we read all posted comments and reply as soon as possible.
Before you go, think about this. If decoupling an idea from its speaker allows us to judge the idea purely on its own merit, what would happen if we applied a Chatham House filter to our daily social media feeds? If we couldn't see the names, avatars, or affiliations of the people posting, would we suddenly find ourselves agreeing with our deepest rivals much more often than we think?